Steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing he's could say could make that any better.
Yeah, nobody. No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home.
Hello and welcome to DRS FC, an F1 podcast by soccer nerds. I am a soccer nerd. I'm André Carlisle, and I'm here with three other soccer nerds. Eboni, how are you?
I'm great. I got to watch Gasly earn points. It's great.
I knew Alpine Talk wasn't going to be long before we got to Alpine Talk, so I went to you first. Deepti, how are you?
I am also fantastic because once again, we found out who in McLaren has the real dog, and that is my guy, Oscar. Oscar won one more race this season already.
Yeah, we may be talking about McLaren and we have two number one drivers and their X-Dog ratings. It may come up. Donald, how are you?
I'm good. It was actually a good race. We got to see some stuff, so I'm cool with it.
Right? Did you know, did y'all know that in a Grand Prix in F1, cars were allowed to pass one another? Did y'all know
That's what I heard. But I didn't believe it until
Big
today.
if true.
I don't I don't blame you for being confused if last week was your first F1 race.
Mm-hmm.
They don't usually do that. On occasion, they do pass one another, and it's fun. Imagine that. Racing. What a concept. Yeah, all right. We're here to review the Bahrain Grand Prix. It was great. It's a great track. It's a fun track. It had a lot of good stuff, a lot of weird stuff, some bad stuff, and some just heartwarming stuff, like Max struggling in the race. I'm telling y'all, whenever Max is not a factor, the races are the most fun. I don't know what that means. If you're a Max fan, this is just your life. This is what you've signed up for, and I'm sorry, but it's just the way it is. So let's review just the overall result, and then let's just talk about everything that happened in the race. I'm not even going to start like chronological. Well, we are going to start with the beginning in one case, but I want to start with notable results. In case you haven't heard, Deepti's very happy. Oscar Piastri won. He qualified on pole, held pole. There was only, after a pit stop, there was only a time when the Ferraris had it because they didn't pit. They started on a harder compound tire, so they were able to stay out while others pitted. That's why they were leading the race. Oscar Piastri quickly assumed the lead of the race and then never gave it back. George Russell was second, and that's a true second. He was not given a penalty for his DRS opening when he hit his radio button, which sounds like my dog ate my homework kind of stuff, but apparently that's what happened. And then Lando Norris fought hard, got to third, and that was it. Ferrari were 4 and 5, even though Leclerc was a lot closer to the top three than Hamilton was to Leclerc, but we'll talk about it. Red Bull 6 and 9, Max 6, Yuki 9, and Ali was 10th. Those are the notable results, but of course we'll get into a lot more. Let's talk about the start and Lando's start. Because at first, the group chat was like, yo, Lando showed some dog. He got up there, he qualified, 6th? And all of a sudden, he was fourth, and we were like, whoa, he made up a bunch of spots in like one turn. And then all of a sudden, we start hearing a little rumbling of, oh, there might be a false start. And then you watch it, and you see, yes, there was a false start. Now, is that the sole reason he passed all those cars? Probably not. But still, he got a 5-second penalty for that, had to serve it, and that ended up impacting the rest of his race as well. Donald, Lando, X-Dog, please discuss.
He did what all of us have done once when learning how to drive, is he put the car in neutral instead of park. Like, car did a little roll. He thought he had the e-brake on, and it just kept rolling. He was like, oh, I mean, this is fine, right? And I like the fact that he got off the line, and he did all that passing, knowing full well where he was. Like, there was no way when you looked at the replay, you're like, oh yeah, like he rolled twice. It wasn't like a roll once and he was like, I think I'm still good. He rolled once, looked and he was like, I'm still good. Rolled a second time, and then he looked down. He could know that he saw the yellow line and it was not in the right position. And he was like, I mean, I'm already here, so I'm gonna just go with it. So any, X-Dog went out the window very, very quickly, but I mean, look, that first overtake, or I'm sorry, the first turn, essentially, where he jumped 3 spots, essentially, that's how Lando is supposed to drive if he wants to win a world championship. but that is also not how Lando Norris has ever driven. So at least he's taste how the big dog eats, and maybe he wants more of it.
Yeah, his starts have been a problem for a while, and the fact that it looked like he got one so right for it to be pulled back by a penalty was like, oh man, you just not. I don't even think it's you can't catch a break. You can't get out of your own way is what is kind of my read of it. Deepti, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple thoughts. First, I feel like there should be someone like dedicated to seeing if their driver has crossed the line and is about to false start. And actually, I don't even know the rule in this. I was wondering, I was like, it happens very infrequently, but when it does happen, you would think someone's there to tell the driver, like, oh, you're too far ahead, come back a bit. And so initially I was like, oh, maybe once they like plant themselves in their spot, maybe they're not allowed to move backwards. And like if they're too far ahead, they're too far ahead. Like that's a penalty. I don't think that is a rule. I don't think that is the case. Like you're allowed to fix yourself if you do roll far ahead. And it just seemed like a silly mistake. Lando in the post race interview was like, yeah, I just thought I was further back than I actually was and can't do anything about it. Um, he was like somewhat taking accountability, but also just like, okay, it is what it is. I will give him credit for those first 3 turns when he did make up about 3 spots. But those were his best overtakes of the entire race, I think. After that, he made a bunch of mistakes. He locked up at one point. He like didn't position himself well when he was defending behind George, especially. And yeah, I think definitely not his best race. He could have possibly he wouldn't have caught Oscar, but he definitely could have gotten second. And he was right to say like after qualifying, I'm going to race for P2. And he tried, didn't make it quite that far, but yeah, there's a lot for him to like look back at the tape and say he could have done things a bit better.
Can we talk real quick about why the guy in the back of the pack with the green flag exists? If only to be the guy that's like, hey, this car's a little bit further ahead, or this car needs to come back. You do not need Fast and Furious to know that every street race has some dude or some chick that walks in front of the line to make sure that the cars do not pass the line. Like funny cars do the same thing. They have someone who walks through and they go, yep, all these cars are where they're supposed to be. Actually, no, you need to come up a little bit more. You need to go back a little bit more. Okay, now it's time to race. And this was something that it feels like it happened. It wasn't like him trying to, rev his engine and go forward a little bit as the lights were going on. This is way before lights out. So this was something that could have been corrected.
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of like that it's on the drivers. I think you have a responsibility to stop yourself. I mean, they do a formation lap. You line up on the grid, then you do a formation lap, and it's up to you to stop yourself. And why would you impact everybody else's race because you need to be pushed back a little bit? Then tires get cold again and all that. We know from the especially the first row, the first couple rows, they sit there for a long time. And if you have to either do an aborted start is annoying because then everybody has to go all the way back around. Like we've seen that a number of times and it is annoying. So for me, I kind of like it that it's like, it's your responsibility. You're driving the car. So the act of driving the car is also knowing where to place the car. And if you can't place the car where you need to place it, or if you roll forward a little early, then it's on you. And that's a fault. Now, I might be mad about it if it was like Lewis or something, but I still feel like that's fair because everybody else lined up fine. It was just him that ended up rolling. And I feel like that's wrong. Ebony, what were your thoughts about Lando? Since Deepti brought up like the rest of his race and how he was locking up, he had to give a position back to Lewis after he overtook him off track. Like everything from the start to him, I mean, climbing up to third was impressive, but also he's got one of the best cars on the grid. So probably should have been second, like he said he was aiming for.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. Like you said, we were all just kind of like, oh my gosh, he actually pulled off like a max move and like climbed to third by the time we got to the third turn. And then everyone was like, oh, well, he false started. And it's like, you don't think that amount of space matters, but that McLaren is super freaking fast. So any amount of space where he gets an advantage is a big advantage for McLaren and for Lando. That being said, Lando has the X-Dog of a fucking goldfish. So it didn't really matter in a sense. And yeah, Deepti brought up the rest of his race, like the lockup where he was chasing after Charles to like pass him. And it was like, what, 15 laps left, maybe. And he was pretty much ready for the overtake, and then did that dumb shit. And now here we are. And now he's got to chase a little bit more. So that left him less time to go chase after Russell. I mean, there was a lot of bad strategies all around. It felt like Ferrari was the smartest team on the grid until that pit stop kind of like changed their whole plan, and then they kind of just like panicked and did the dumb things, which is weird. I mean, Oscar just kind of like cruised off into the sunset. That was the only place we knew was locked up was Oscar at 1. So that was a really nice race for him, I think. But yeah, Lando just kind of like, I know he was also having some issues with, like, he at one point said over the radio that he had some issue with his brakes, but I feel like everyone was saying something about brakes or tires at some point during this whole wonky race with like communications. And I mean, even Oscar had his water thing not working, so I don't know. It was just a weird race, but it was on par for Orlando. I guess I'll go for second type quote of a race.
Lando, before the Grand Prix, after he qualified and had a pretty shocking qualifying session where he qualified, what was it, P6? He said something like, it's like he's never drove an F1 car before. And listen, like, I know, like, Lewis, one thing that I don't like about Lewis is how down he can get on himself, and it feels like Lando can do the exact same thing, except like Lando doesn't have like the 7 world championships where like, okay, dude is fast. Like, we know, okay, we know Lando's a fast driver, but like, what was it in 2020 when Lando was like, well, Lewis should win, he's got the fastest car. Ain't that easy, is it, buddy? Like, now that you have the fastest car, and now obviously he's got a very fast teammate, so the pressure is on. You have to qualify ahead of him if you want things to happen. But I'm just like frustrated kind of by Lando in this scenario, and I'm really interested to see what McLaren does in the future, because yes, it's early, but it also seems mentality-wise already that Oscar's ready for this and Lando still isn't, even after saying he learned so much last year. Let's shift to Ferrari, because I love what Eboni said. They were the smartest team on the grid, and they were until some things happened. But they legitimately were. They were what? I think there were only like 1 or 2 other cars that started on the medium tires.
Yeah.
They pitted. They stayed out longer than everybody else because everybody else was on the softs. They pitted and they went on mediums again, and it was like, yo, that's really smart. Like, use both your mediums. That's the best tire for this track, and then try and figure out what to do in the final stint, which is where I think they betrayed their strategy decision a little bit. But let's talk about that decision, because it looked brilliant. The Ferraris looked a lot better in kind of race pace than they did all weekend, really, and certainly since the previous race and all of that. They brought a new floor, so that looked like it had some benefits, at least in the race, not necessarily qualifying, even though Charles Leclerc qualified, what P3 was he? So that was impressive.
I feel like, because you heard over the radio that they were saying plan B, and Charles was like, no, plan D. And we were like, well, based on what you're bringing out, it sounds like you wanted to go to hard tires. And then they kind of freaked out because Max was doing crap on the hard tires. And they were like, no, we're going to scrap that. We're going to go back to more medium tires. And that's what led me to believe that they were probably going to take those mediums all the way to like lap 51 and try to put on some soft tires to end the race, because everybody else was already like 2 stops, 3 stops, because Kimi was essentially at 3 stops at that point, right? Because he pitted twice in 5 laps because of the safety car. I think the safety car kind of blew up their plan for that late pit for the soft tires. I think it happened a little too soon for them, so they panicked. I'm like, you're Ferrari. What are you panicking for? And I think that's what kind of like messed it up. And then they put on the hards to try to end the race, which we saw with Russell when he put on the soft. And he was like, 23 laps with a soft tire is audacious. And I know we talked about it, André, in the group chat. When do you decide to take the gamble? Because Mercedes did it. They're like, fuck, we're just gonna go for it. And if we have to pit again, we'll have to pit again, and that's a lesson learned. But they went the safe route, and now all of a sudden, what could have been easily a potentially 2-3 is now a 5 and what was it, 8th or 9th?
Whoa. It was 4 or 5. What are you doing?
Oh,
to
4
Lewis?
5? Dang. I'm thinking
Yeah,
of Red
4
Bull. I'm
5.
sorry. 4 or 5. But you could have
Yeah.
been 2-3. I'm sorry. Just because you had the better strategy than every other team on the grid up until that safety car. And that's where I was like, do you play it safe? We were having this conversation though, like, when's the time to play it safe and when's the time to not? Because Charles was fast. And you could have put him on softs and left Lewis on hards to see what you got from it and then make the decision to pit if you needed to afterwards. Because Lewis was also making up very good ground, especially with those mediums overtaking throughout the entire like middle of the grid. So I don't know. I feel like that safety car, although a lot of teams love it because it's a free pit, this one kind of hurt them in the worst way possible.
Yeah, I think like obviously hindsight is 2020, but I think in real time I was like, oh, what tires are they putting on? Oh, damn it, they put on the hards because I think it was just like if you have the bold strategy, be bold. They went out there and like I believe the full like top 10, except for those two, were on soft tires. So like you're going up against a lot of drivers on soft tires to start the race. If you can hang on and keep building and keep your lap times pretty consistent and close enough, they're going to have to pit. You're going to get some extra time because you're going to be able to keep rolling on those medium tires. And as we saw, the medium tire was like the best tire to be on throughout the race. They were the only ones who had two stints on the medium tires to start the race back to back. They really could have capitalized on that by being like, okay, I know the safety car is poorly timed, but let's see if we can get the soft tires there because I already knew that Max was struggling on the hard tires. And it wasn't just Max. There were other drivers that were struggling on the hard tires. Some did okay on it, but like you're fighting for top spots. And George Russell went on the soft tires early, as Eboni said, and made those things last, 24 laps. I really would have loved to see this. I really would have loved to see how the race would have played out if they would have gone to soft tires. I wish I could just like rewind reality, make that switch and be like, okay, how does this play out if they go on softs? Because maybe they eat them up, but maybe they are able to be stronger in the final stints. Donald, what were your thoughts?
See, I'm not as upset at the strategy because I think, as y'all mentioned, the safety car is what blew the strategy up. That's what happened. I think if there's no safety car, they're taking it to the 45th, 46th, maybe even 47th lap. They get their softs on and then they crush it. And the thing was, up until that point, the only data they had is that everybody who had soft tires to start the race ate through them after 10 laps. And so people were coming in. So the fact that after the safety car, you have Russell going out there for 23, 24 laps with soft tires, even he's saying that's dumb. Lando was like, oh yeah, that's great. And I know some people are probably like, oh, he probably thinks that they're the strongest tires. They weren't. He's probably just doing some reverse psychology. Yeah, you do the softs. You see how that works out, right? Because he wants to catch up to Russell. He wants Russell in the worst tires possible. And so I think the problem is the only data they had was that these softs can only last 10, 11 laps, and him going 24 laps is just stupid. When he got to 17, 18, that's when everyone goes, oh, they should have gone to the softs. But that's not data that they had at that point. So I'm not as hard on them for the actual strategy. I do think the safety car is really what messed that up.
I think you're right. I do agree. Like, given all the data that you do have at that point to make the decision, it would have been the riskier move to make to call for the softs. I just kind of wanted to see them do the riskier move because their whole strategy was bold. So stay bold. And you also knew the hard tires sucked, which Lewis confirmed after he was on it. Deepti, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, honestly, I just want to see someone deep dive. We often talk about how we want to do an episode on tires, but that could be kind of boring. But for this race, it was so interesting because, like we've said, each team had kind of a different strategy, or like the way the tires worked out was different than what people expected from the get-go. Like initially, the mediums, like everyone started on softs except for those couple teams, and I think it was, I don't know who radioed, but someone was like, oh, the mediums are not actually doing well. And we're like, okay, Ferrari, bad strategy. But then you keep going, and we realized softs were getting eaten alive, and so maybe medium was the better one. And then towards the end, when, like you said, when Max was on the hards, that wasn't working out. They're like, maybe it's not. But was it just Max's car? Was it all the cars on the hard? So it was really difficult to actually tell which tires were good and which part of it was just the track itself, which part of it was all the other stuff happening with like the mechanical issues and stuff of the cars. So I just want someone to like deep dive into the strategy and like science of the tires for this race, and I would love to see that. But I was gonna say I agree with you guys on that. The safety car was just at a misopportune time, especially for Ferrari. I think it was lap 32 or so, right? But I just want to also give props to, like, I think it was George, Kimmy, and Yuki at some point. They were all on used soft tires, which is even more of like a whoa for this track, because if you look at the end of the race, there's when George is driving up to his like P2 spot, you can just see how eaten up those softs are, and it was amazing that he was able to last that long, like almost 28 laps on those tires. And he even said, like, you know, one more lap, probably Lando would have been able to catch him. So the fact that he was able to hold off a McLaren on those tires while having all these other mechanical issues that we'll get to, that was actually such a good drive by him.
I was going to say, you kind of got to give him credit for that, because like you said, his tires look like some pork rinds at the end. And if they had gone, I don't even know a lap would have, I think if he had gone a half lap more, those tires would have either blown up or he just would have have to throttle all the way back, because he just wouldn't have any grip whatsoever. So it's kind of a masterclass by him on how to manage the tires and also how to get that car around and be fast enough to hold off everybody else, save for Piastri, because Piastri was so far ahead. Like, how to hold off those guys on some pork rind ass tires. That's not something that you see from George every day.
Yeah.
No, I love that, Deepti, you shouted that out, because when he rolled up to that 2 spot, I was like, oh my God, like his tires looked awful. Now I do know they do ask the drivers after races to kind of drive around and pick up marbles or little bits of rubber to help with weight so the car can make it. So some of it was that, but not all of it was that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of like you, Deepti. I'm such a nerd that I do want to listen to somebody explain all the things, because the margins are so fine in all of these cars and all these races that like a full fuel load versus a light fuel load can change your tire wear too. So maybe the softs were getting torn up because they were in cars with all the fuel. Maybe once you burn through some fuel, the softs can last a little bit longer. But like, how do you know? Because you're never going to test like a 20, like when are you going to do a 25 lap run on soft tires with low fuel load? You'd need like 8 practice sessions to try like every potential scenario, and you got 3 and one, and not even in the same conditions as well. Like this was a nighttime race. A couple of them were during the practice sessions were during the day when the track was really, really hot. So there are so many different factors and decisions to make that, like, yes, you can second guess a lot of things, but there are so many things that affect these cars, from the tires to the engines to the fuel load to everything else. So yeah, I think it's a good talking point. My thing is always just like, if you're gonna be bold, be bold. But I also understand trying the hard tire and just being like, if this thing gets into a good window and we can, make some moves, good. But we already know the sauce had a problem earlier in the race, so I understand it. Should we talk about why the safety car came out? Because
yes,
I think
Yes.
the broadcast was a bit of a hot ass mess. Okay, like there are a lot of things that we can talk about with the broadcast, because I was like, what are y'all? Can y'all like tell us what's happening in the race? Like there's so many things that just were either not explained, or they cut to a replay just as 2 cars look like they're about to collide, and I'm like, I want to see the live action. I don't want to see the replay right now. There were so many things, but this one, and this was one of those instances where Yuki Tsunoda and Carlos Sainz got into, or basically Yuki Tsunoda got into Carlos Sainz's car. We thought that the debris, which is just pieces of carbon fiber, was from Yuki's wing, because they showed us his wing clipping the rear wheel of Carlos Sainz's car. It wasn't until later in the race where we actually saw the other contact where basically Yuki just like T-boned him and like punched a hole in Sainz's side pod, and Sainz eventually had to retire the car. That's where all the debris came from, because eventually that side pod was punctured and it just exploded. So like, and Sainz he did say Yuki was stupid, or what he did was stupid. So, critique the action, not the person.
I thought it was on Sainz. I thought Sainz was the one that lunged in.
Go on, explain. Talk about the turn and why you think it was on Sainz. Go for it. I'm interested.
I feel like he took the outside and Yuki took the inside, but then he immediately lunged into the inside where Yuki was going. So I feel like it was all on Sainz. So then they just were like, he's like, oh, Yuki was so stupid. I'm like, no, you didn't leave him any space to move the car out of your way, because you were already into the, like, you came from the outside to cut across to try to cut him off. And it was a little tap, like what felt like a little tap in the moment. And then you saw the giant gaping hole on Sainz's car and you're like, oh wait, no, that was actually a lot. But I thought it was Sainz's fault. So when he got the penalty, I was like, oh, I didn't think they were going to actually like penalize him just because they were inconsistent all over. But yeah, I was okay with it. And this was not just me trying to make sure that Yuki got points. I was like, that was so stupid. I said it in real time. I was like, that's so stupid of you, Carlos. What are you doing?
All right, Donald, you made a face when Ebony said she thought it was Carlos's fault. What do you think?
It was.
Y'all know good and well it was Yuki's fault. Yeah, I mean, we love the boy, but that good and well that was his fault. That there's no way to get around that. That man ran into Carlos and took his whole shit out. Like that's okay, right? That happens.
Only reason, like, if you carry the one,
if you have to break out geometry and trigonometry to explain yourself, you already know you're wrong. Like,
did you say
the
carry
angle
the one?
of which Carlos came into Yuki, like it was like 68 degrees. Like it wasn't like a quadrilateral, but
if anyone's seen us Always Sunday in Philadelphia, if you just type in the GIF conspiracy, that is Ebony right now trying to do the whole like
Ebony's just cutting right now. If you can't see her, but it's just
that. Yeah, that was a great, lucid, elaborate explanation of why you thought Carlos was in the wrong. But that was Yuki's fault. Overruled. Whatever you want to do. Objection noted. That's what it was.
You gotta look at it. You gotta do like you gotta like look at it. You gotta squint and turn your head just a little bit to the side, and then you can see how the angle was cut before Yuki could cut, and then it was
She's like, you got to add the glare of the third light on the 8th turn because it was at night, and you know how them light bulbs be over there. Like they're not the same ones we got. So they're not as bright, and they have a different angle. They have a different glare. And Yuki still hit him. Like,
you got to play Dark Side of the Moon backwards while you're watching it. Otherwise, you can't see it, right? Like, yeah, this is... All right, Deepti, your thoughts. Are you on Ebony's, like, galaxy brain, or are you kind of like, this is kind of cut and dry for me?
I'm like, let them race. This was a racing incident. No, not really. It was... it was pretty cut and dry. I think that Ebony. I love your explanation. I love where your head's at, but I'm not sure I can agree with you this time.
I thought I was gonna get girl power on that one. Damn.
I know. I'm so sorry.
You were so passionate though with the ipso facto.
So
carry the one.
I
appreciate it.
If you say it with enough gusto, and no one can really refute it. They're just like, I
almost believed you. You almost had me.
Deepti was like, I was convinced until I just thought.
I just had a thought, and it's okay. We'll watch it back. Let me watch it back while Ebony explains. Pause the video here and there. Tell me what you're looking at, and then there we go. Maybe we'll see. I just that when they showed Carlos's car, but because all of us we were confused. They're like, even the commentators are confused. Why is there a safety car? Why did they change it from virtual safety car to a regular one? They were showing a couple other instances where like cars just barely touched and like collided briefly on track. Like maybe it was that, maybe more like debris came off of whatever this little incident, and then they show Carlos driving by and you see the gaping hole in the side and you're like, oh, that's why. That's the incident and that's what happened and that's why there was debris and everything. And yeah, that I think that one was pretty cut and dry. But if there was another, was it Liam Lawson who got another 10-second penalty from a
He
collision?
got 2 penalties, didn't he?
Two. But one of them was, that one actually did just seem like a racing incident and was just a little love tap. And I was like, okay, this one seems like a bit too much. Like, especially given how harsh the penalty was. I feel like that one was more of, just let them race and let them try to do things. I'm not the best on like determining when a driver is at fault and who's not and what's like incorrect etiquette, but that one genuinely seemed like just a small thing that could have been passed.
Yeah, I think there is always sometimes a danger that stewards are gonna like over referee the race, and you do want like if guys make contact, sometimes that's just fine. They're racing around a track at very high speeds. A lot of cars are bunched together. Sometimes it's gonna happen, but you don't want one driver to be like unfairly affected. So I'm kind of with you, Deepti, on that Liam Lawson one. He's just having not a good time. I do want to give the stewards a shout out for, or whoever makes the call, the race director, sorry, not the stewards, but the race director, a shout out for calling for that safety car, because we have seen, especially last year, where they did not make the right decision or they waited too long. Remember when that mirror came off and then it exploded and there was glass all over the track and they still didn't do it, and then Lewis and I can't remember who else just popped a tire because they ran straight over glass on the track. Like, it was on the racing line. They gave it a little bit of time to see, like, is it going to clear? And then when it wasn't, they were quick with the safety car. And they also did it in a chance that didn't actually mess with the flow of the race.
Mm-hmm.
I think the commentators were saying, like, if Oscar Piastri was like 200 or 300 more yards, like further, he would have been forced to stay out while everybody else pitted, and that would have really messed up the race. So that could have turned it up. So they did it at the perfect time to allow for that not to be a strategy that just wrecks somebody or puts somebody in play out of nowhere. So I do want to give them a shout out, because if they would have made the wrong decision, we would have been on here killing them. Topic one, like A block of this whole thing. And so they got the decision right, and I appreciated that.
Speaking of stewards' decisions, can we talk about the number one steward of this race, Maxwell Emilian Verstappen? Max, actually, his government name is Max, but Maxwell sounds great when you're telling somebody to get their ass in the house. This man needs to stop snitching, for real. Like, 3 of the first 4 radio calls that we were able to hear on international TV was of Max Verstappen snitching, and he needs to stop. Like, he really does, especially when he's calling out stuff that he himself does every single week.
Yeah,
he had me almost crashing out in lap 10 because he was like, he did it, he started it, he went first, he false started, he didn't give me enough turn, do something about it. Like, thankfully the stewards are kind of now seeing that he's, the guy that puts all the notes in the suggestion box about all the violations of the homeowners association. But man, he needs to quit, man. Like, if you want to be a steward so bad, stop driving. And if you want to be a driver so bad, stop snitching.
I'm so glad you went there, because my next topic was to be like, I need Donald to talk about Max snitching, because he really was about to crash out in the group chat.
I was like, come on, like,
so great.
because it was like, the thing was, is like, you hear the, like, you're like, oh, somebody's about to talk.
Yeah.
It's Max talking. Oh, he didn't give me enough on that turn, so I couldn't pass him. To drive faster, buddy. Like, you've been doing this shit for 4 years now. Like, get out of the way. Like, this is problematic, because we're race 4, and we're having to talk about him snitching every week, like, multiple times. And like, I don't think he got 2 laps without hitting that button 3 times and saying, this person did this over here, this guy over here in the corner. didn't give me enough. You guys didn't give me enough water. These tires suck. Your strategy is awful. The blinky light in my pit is not working right. The green light's not working at all.
Funny.
Like that part was funny. But like, come on, man. Everyone knows like the first time we went through, like the blinky light didn't work. I get it. That sucks. Let them know. They don't need to hear it by the second time, man. It's still broke. Like, they don't need you to tell them again. They're already on top of it. They are professionals too. So yeah, this man needs to stop snitching all over the place.
Yeah, do you think his engineer GP gets annoyed? I mean, he must get annoyed with like, or anybody listening to the radios of how many times he's like, okay, we'll do our jobs. We can see things too. We know, and every time they're just like, yep, understood. Yep, we're on it. Yep, got it. And he's just like,
I love GP.
These brakes are not working. They use it. Like, hit the brake, buddy. Like, do you need me to teach you how to do it? No, you're a driver. You're a big boy. Like,
yeah.
Remember last year when like his engineer was basically just like stop whining and race?
Yeah.
Because he was getting so over it. It was perfect.
I you know how somebody will see somebody on TV and they're like, yo, I need that skincare routine. I need to know GP's self-care routine because the way he handles Max is amazing because he's just like, understood. Thank you. Yes, we're on it. We're checking.
Probably got a voodoo doll.
Maybe. But like he is or to be like, this is an old reference, so I'm sorry people ain't gonna get it. Listen, I'm a millennial. This is what happens. I remember Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the dude Ray Finkel when he went to Ray Finkel's room and he had all this propaganda like stuffed animals like with darts in it for Dan Marino.
Laces
like he
out.
hated Dan Marino. Maybe that's what GP's room looks like. You go home and he's just got like effigies of Max that he's like burns and shoots arrows into because he's like, I gotta get this out somehow, and he's so good that I can't do this like live or in front of anybody employed with Red Bull. So when I go home, I'm just going to get it all out, and then we're good to go in the next race.
He's going to wait for the perfect time to get back at him. The time will hurt him the most. Abu Dhabi.
Oh, that was funny, though. But this is the thing that bothers me about Max, because as much as the stewards were giving a ton of penalties, there were a lot of penalties. There were black flag penalties. There were cause of collision penalties. There were so many penalties. They looked at that, what he complained about, didn't give a penalty for it. So, okay, they noted it. They saw it. They said it was all good. Like, and I know all drivers complain all the time because it's a very high pressure situation. It's intense. There's a lot of pressure on them and all of that. They're driving 200 miles an hour. I get it. But then, like, sitting still in your car and you see Lando creep forward, do you think they missed that? Like, do you think you have a direct button?
Cameras.
Yeah, do you think do your job. Focus on your job. Like, they're not going to miss that. They saw it. Like, you don't need to point out every single thing that happens. Your job is to drive the race, not like steward the race. So like that was the one for me that pushed me a little over the edge, is that I was just like,
yeah,
I get it. Drivers are always going to complain, but that one had no effect on you, man. Like, just let it go. They're going to look at it. If it was obvious to you, I'm sure it was obvious to the 30 cameras they got pointed at the grid. It's going to be fine.
It's like someone trying to be teacher's pet because they think, if I point out and correct all these things, like they'll think I'm the smartest, the best, and really everyone, including the teachers, and in this case, the stewards, will get annoyed. And they're like, yeah, man, we know what we're doing. You do your own job. That's it.
And it's not like he's masking it. Like, if there's an incident, right? Guys are doing some rubbing racing, like they're going around a curve, and he goes, hey, we hit tires, but I think, I should have had the angle because A, B, and C. And usually when that happens, like those guys are like, okay, noted. Like if they come to us about an incident, we'll tell them what you saw. But he's just like, he did it. He did this. He did that. It's always masked as, I have done nothing wrong. I am perfect. These other people around me are in this other world with this other set of rules that aren't the rules, and I have to be the one to enforce them. There are 9 billion cameras at every F1 event. There are 150,000 people who saw Lando Norris false start. They don't need you. You just drive. Like, just do your job, because here's the thing. Next time, if Max better be perfect, Max better not have a close, even his toe on the line. This toe better not be painted white, because I promise you, somebody is going to be like, hey Max, what's up with your front tire? What's up with your little thing right here? What's up with this? Why are you driving like an asshole? Like, this is going to be something that's going to plague him, and somebody needs to step up and be the guy that's like, all right, if you're going to start snitching on everybody, then I'm just going to make you make your life a living hell. I think it should be Yuki, but that's just me because Yuki could be number one.
All right, we're almost ready to kind of move on and again do our Zoomy and Gloomy Boy, but I think there are two things that we need to talk about because two things really blew up the group chat as well that are important to talk about. I love the group chat just produces the review episode, so I'm here for that. Ebony, we've held you off long enough. It might be time to talk about Alpine. Pierre Gasly gets what did he get? 5th place or 6th place? Oh no, wait. Did he get dropped down to 7th? Yeah, because Max passed
Oh,
in the
yeah.
very last corner. I'm mad about that. But he did qualify 5th, which was amazing. Doohan qualified 11th, which was amazing. I don't even know where he ended up, but
It was 13th, I think.
But Alpine got points. Gasly looked fast.
It was wild. It was such a great race weekend for Alpine. Holy crap. I'm so excited. Gasly was solid. Like he was so good all weekend. And it wasn't even like it was just like a fluke. No, he qualified 5th. And it was just he stayed the course. Alpine had a successful double stack going into one of the pit stops. It was just like
that was impressive.
That was nice.
That was like them and Ferrari, they did a fantastic job on that. But then the only reason Doohan dropped so much is because like there was just like this weird train of DRS battle type thing, and then everyone was just kind of like whatever. That's when Kimi started to make his way back through that little 10, 11, 12 space. It was that he stayed the course and he had a really successful race. He held off Max for like 10 laps. The last turn is when he gave up the position at like literally lap 57. He as long as he can like keep that going, I'm very happy for Alpine, and that was really, really cool to see him just be so excited to get to even qualify that high and then place that high for the final race. I have zero problems about that race and that strategy this weekend, and I need Kyle here to hear me be joyful.
Once again, Kyle's not on the recording.
I think as soon as Alpine did good, Kyle was like, I'm busy. I don't think I'm able to
free.
make it.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna make it. But yeah, I thought Alpine had a great. I mean, especially in qualifying, I don't know where that came from. I didn't even hear any rumors of them doing anything with their car, like bringing in any upgrades. But they must have done something because that was a much better performance than what we thought. The only thing is, like you mentioned, I was kind of disappointed at him holding off Max for so long, and then the last corner, he gets caught by Max and passed by Max. So that was really frustrating. But I think overall, obviously, it's really good to see Alpine have that kind of result.
I would like to just go on record and say that apparently I am the Phil Jackson of Alpine, because on our preview, when it was just Kyle and I laid into Alpine because Ebony wasn't there and I could do it. I laid in Alpine for like 10 minutes about how they need to step up. They were the only team at that point that had no points in the constructors. Gasly was not acting like the dude who was like, wetting his eyebrows in the intro last year and playing all Mac Daddy. He needed to step up and play some ball, and they did. So I'm very happy that they have figured out a way to get together. I mean, even Doohan finishing 14th, like he has shown a lot of improvement over the last couple of weeks, and so I'm happy for him for that. Now, am I happy enough to be like, get all Alpine stuff? No, but I do think that they need to continue to do this, because as I mentioned, if they don't, the last thing they need is for everyone else in the grid to wake up. If they, the people that were just behind them, or I'm sorry, just ahead of them, were like people like Aston Martin, people like Ferrari. Ferrari woke up, right? Ferrari got some big points this week. Aston Martin, we'll talk about them later. But I think if they don't get these points and build up something, then it's going to be very hard for them to climb out of the cellar into, 6th or 5th or 4th place, because they're just going to have too much to overcome.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point because they picked up these points. Not only, I mean, Gasly is the only driver that picked up points, but still, it was a decent amount of points. And in a race where Albon finished 12th and Sainz DNF. So they're in direct competition with Williams. Williams came out with no points. And so that's important for them to capitalize on those kind of opportunities. But you know who got double points, though? Haas gang.
And them Haas boys?
Them Haas boys. I always love double Haas points. I don't know why. Again, I wish I could communicate to like the rest of the F1 world. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're American. In fact, that is like their like negative point for me. I just think that like they're such like a ragtag crew. Or like again, it's a Franken car. It's built from like multiple continents have to come together. Multiple countries have to come together and communicate to put this car together. I like Ollie Behrman. Ocon's all right. But like, I just like when they do well because they have like a fraction of the budget and the like employees is a lot of the teams they're competing with, and certainly a fraction of the history in F1. And I just kind of love seeing it. So like, whenever Haas gets double points, I'm here for it.
I enjoyed it, and Behrman, we'll talk about him, but I thought he did well, especially considering he started in qualifying. It was not looking great.
No,
for Haas, right? Behrman was in 20th. Ocon crashed. Like, it was not looking great for them. But to get back and get double points, that's a hell of a showing for them.
Mm-hmm. Haas, I was really impressed, and I'm really glad that they could continue. I think we've been saying, like, we don't know if this is kind of a fluke, but it seems like they're getting a little bit more consistent. To me right now, like, yes, Kimi has been great, been consistent, but Ollie Behrman is, I think, currently top rookie for me, just considering what car he's in and how he's been doing in it. Going P20 to P10 in a Haas is incredible, and there was only one retired car, which was Carlos's, so it's not like there were several like incidents to have him move up the grid. Like, that was all racing. Same with Ocon, went from, I think it was P14 he qualified to, or 15 up to 7th, and so again, such a great showing for them. More points for constructors for both of them, and I almost want to see, I don't know what their peak is going to be. I know, André, you predicted Haas podium at some point, so maybe that's not too far away, like getting points consistently. I mean, at this point, I think like each of us, we have our own like what's the word, kind of. Ebony's got her Alpine tattoo. There's Ebony versus Kyle, Alpine versus Mercedes, and now I think you and we need to do like, who's gonna podium first, Williams or Haas? It's gonna be one of those things.
It's got to be
because
Haas,
both
right?
of us have,
I'm here for it.
At this point,
who knows?
I don't know. I think it's still up in the air. Williams is if anyone, is probably going to be Alex. But I actually, to that point, I think Williams was shortchanged a bit here, and they did mention this in qualifying. Alex Albon finished P16 in Q1, so he was dropped out in Q1 immediately. But then Hulkenberg went into Q2, and then like soon after, you see that Hulkenberg actually got his like lap time deleted for track limits, and then was pushed to P16, which means like none of his Q2 stuff actually counted. But because of that, Alex Albon was not allowed to compete in Q2. So like, who knows where he would have actually qualified and like where he would have finished for real. And so
can we talk about that for just a second? Because it took them 45 minutes to be like, oh, this lap should be deleted. That's bonkers. And timed qualifying?
Considering that like in Q2 and Q3, there were like 5 other instances of guys getting their times immediately deleted.
Yeah,
right?
Usually
like
track limits is called immediately. And the reasoning,
that was wild. I don't know. Did we ever get an explanation about why it happened so late?
No, they just, FIA was just like, oh yeah, like that was our bad. Like they were like, yeah, that's our fault. And I think the closest explanation we got was that they were like, we were checking these other turns, like I don't remember which ones, 8, 9, something like that, and they were like, we just didn't have it on our like radar to check turn 11. and turn 11 was actually where most of the cars were going off, even during the main race. That's where we saw a lot of the cars get called, and that's why we had 4 or 5 drivers on the black and white flag, which is we we had to look at these rules and clarify, but black and white flag is what you get on your third instance of track limits. And then from on your fourth one, you get a 5-second penalty. On your fifth one, you get 10-second penalty. Hopefully there's no more after that, but I'm assuming it just increments more. But for having several cars go off and like turn 11 be the one, it's weird that they didn't even have it on their radar to check that, and that's why it like took so long for them to flag that incident, was because they just didn't expect it.
Yeah, that was really annoying. Otherwise, it was a really good and fun qualifying session, but the fact that that happened so late and you didn't get Albon into Q2 because of that, that was really annoying. All right, Deepti.
Yes.
Before we get to Zoomy and Gloomy Boy, we do need to let you talk about Oscar Piastri, because that is your
Yes.
boy. He's looking like the much stronger McLaren driver. He's looking like maybe the driver to beat. I know it's early, but he's got 2 wins already, and both wins were really impressive. Pole took it all the way home.
Yeah. He was fastest all weekend except for, I think, FP1. And he kind of just set the standard from the get-go. Drove I'm going to say a perfect race. You know, I don't know what's up with his engineers and his team being like, oh, that was nearly perfect. Oh, that was like be happy for him. Tell him he drove perfectly, because he did. And there was like, I don't think there was any mistakes on his part. He did what he had to do. Pit crew did really well in like getting him proper pit stops as well, and like having him move forward. I have said since even since last season, I think Oscar is the number one driver. I think McLaren should have Oscar be number one driver. And we were talking about, you know, at what point does McLaren have to make this decision between the two drivers, who is going to be number one? And I think it's clear now. I like 4 races in. Yes, Lando has 4 podiums. Oscar has 2 wins. In Australia, he could have gotten another, or at least definitely podiumed if he didn't have that like sad incident of going on the grass and basically crashing out. So if you look at all of that, I think it's clear, maybe not super clear, but just based on like driving capability, but also mental capability and like focus and just the X-Dog factor, like that should be a thing, you know. We see that Oscar has it, and Oscar like can be a winner and can get the championship. And I think if McLaren is smart, they will start treating him like the number one, and let Lando just, you know, be Lando. But I've backed him from the beginning, and I will continue to say it for now and forevermore until McLaren gets their shit together about who's number one, because it should be Oscar.
Yeah, I really love Oscar's silent assassin thing. Like it doesn't seem like anything phases him. Whereas as we talked about earlier, like when Lando had that bad qualifying, he was so down on himself. And I think one, you don't see that many really like super poor out of nowhere qualifying sessions from Oscar. But even if he was the one to do that, I think he'd be like, yeah, that wasn't exactly what we wanted, but we have a really good car. We're going to try and make up the positions on Sunday. Like I think he would have had that kind of, and then he would have done it, you know, like he would have been impressive. And I also think even if you don't get the McLarens on pole, you kind of see the difference sometimes and who has the dog to kind of go after somebody and put pressure on them, which is what made the Japan race so frustrating. And I listened to a lot of reviews on that because I had a cross-country flight, so I was listening to a whole lot of podcasts. But I thought the thing that really frustrated me about that particular moment, and yes, this is not talking about Bahrain, it's going back to talk about Japan. The thing that really frustrated me about that is not only did they not swap the drivers and say, okay, Oscar, like Lando couldn't get close enough, like even in the DRS range, let's see if you can do it and try and put pressure on Max. But also, they did get closer. Max had a bad pit stop. You were over a second away. If you don't drive into a grass and be like, oh my God, he drove me off. Like you knew that wasn't going to work. You drove into the grass. You weren't wheel to wheel coming out. Like, don't play that game and try to have like the referees help you. He gave you you made up the time in the pits. So stick behind him as you're going out, fresh tires, stick behind him, get DRS and pass him, put moves on him and see what happens But when he did that drive into the grass thing and, oh my God, look at that, he drove me off, he lost all of the advantage he got in that pit stop. So like, to me, if you're not going to be able to take advantage in those moments, then I want the driver who looks like he will take advantage in those moments. And Oscar routinely looks like on track, I want to win this thing, and I can win this thing. I'm going to pass who I need to pass. I'm going to put it on pole when I need to put it on pole. I'm going to protect the lead when I need to protect the lead. I'm going to protect my tires when I need to protect my tires. Like, he seems to have it all right now.
You know, I think the other thing is, and I know we've kind of talked about this on this show, the fact that Lando is British and McLaren is British, that there's a little bit of a pressure there underlying out over wherever you want to call it. It's still there that he has to be the guy, or at least you can't outright dismiss him as the guy. Whereas Piastri is from Australia, and sure, yeah, Australia is like-minded, but they're not European. And we've seen F1 over the years always gravitate towards a European that is really, really good over a non-European that might be also very good, right? It just happens. And I think also when it comes to Oscar, there have been times, right, where he has kind of had to defer because they're so close. This time around, what was great about this win for him is that it was so dominant that they couldn't do anything about it, right? Like, there was no opportunity for them to be like, hey, you and Lando swap, right? Because he was 15 seconds ahead of everybody else, essentially, so for most of the race. So, like, you can't do that without giving up both positions. And so I think that was the thing, is he kind of figured out, for me to win and for me to get the top billing, let's just go out and just destroy everybody. So we'll see if that continues. But I think that was why he ended up being so dominant. I mean, like, even in the practices and the practices, he was like a second ahead of half the grid, right? And that's not normal. In qualifying, he was like over a half second. I think it was like the top three, and then there was like 2 seconds separating the top three from everybody else. Like, that's not normal either. So I think he just kind of said, let me just go ahead and wax everybody, because if I wax everybody, they're not focused on me and they're not asking me to do anything except finish this race out.
Mm-hmm. We saw towards the end, we were trying to read some faces and see what people, on McLaren were thinking, especially Zach Brown. And is he happy with how this is going? Like, is he secretly like, I think he's gunning for Lando to be number one, because Lando has all the pressure on him, and they've been promoting Lando as number one driver because he was the closest to Max last season, and that, everyone was like, okay, Lando can win this time. People were maybe underestimating what Oscar could do. So for Zach Brown to think, oh, maybe we are promoting the wrong number one driver and making a possibly wrong decision, I think he's not entirely like happy with how that is going. Or like, maybe he's just like, I don't want to have to make this decision, but I'm going to have to soon. And that's what you can kind of see on his face. Like, yes, of course he's happy. Constructors is really important. They're on track to win it again this time. But I think you can kind of see there's a little bit of that tension between, who do we have to pick first?
Yeah, and they super do not want to make a decision. And this is the thing that's been really frustrating about them. And now the two number one drivers thing has become like, it's become almost like a hill to die on. Like, Zach will do the thing in interviews now. He'll just be like, two number one drivers, baby. And it's like, okay, shut up. Like, you're going to have to choose eventually. The reason why people say this isn't because no team has ever had two really good drivers. It's because when you do have two really good drivers, it doesn't work. You're going to have to choose somebody eventually. And I understand if now isn't the time, but to think you're just going to keep being able to move like this is not going to happen. At some point, you're going to have to prioritize one of them. Still, you might want to get used to it.
Yeah, I don't think he's happy about it at all, not gonna lie. I like you were saying, like, he's gonna have to eat his words, and he's gonna have to make the choice that everyone told him he was gonna have to make last season, and he's gonna have to do it now. And the funny part is, it's not gonna be the driver that everybody wants it to be. So
yeah. And to be honest, I don't think he has to make it now, but I do think it's going to come pretty soon, because I do think like that Japan race, that could have gone very differently if they make any sort of difference. They basically just copied Max's strategy. You do that, you're never going to pass, especially in Japan. So like, you have to do something different. And right now, the way the points stack up, you just kind of let it play out. But at some point, we're coming up quick, especially because we know, like, the flexi wing thing, if that's part of their advantage, that's going to go away soon. Things are going to tighten up. Like, you're going to have to make a decision soon when it comes to these two drivers. And we'll just have to see when it happens. But, like, it's going to have to happen at some point this year. And I don't think they're prepared.
Well, it's got to happen before our next break is what? Before Miami?
I believe so.
Yeah, so it's got to happen. The Miami race, you kind of have to have a choice made, right? Because if not, then your season is fucked.
Well, it all depends on like what Max and Yuki can do, or what if the Ferraris get it together. Like it really all depends on the other teams. Like if they're putting up points, or Ferrari's all of a sudden able to be routinely on the podium, or Max kind of gets it together, and now he's putting Lando and Oscar under pressure because they're sharing points back and forth, and now for the drivers' championship, and now Max is right alongside them, or he's splitting them 1, 2, 3. Like that's when you're gonna have to make a decision. Right now they don't, because every other team is struggling. But if those other teams get it together, or again, as an advantage that McLaren might be having with the flexi wing, who knows how much of it is that? I certainly don't know. I don't know enough technical stuff to know that. But there are going to be these moments where things are going to tighten up. You can't expect Ferrari to always be, well, maybe you can because it's Ferrari, but somebody's going to figure something out and get closer to them. And if that starts, I mean, George is also right there. Like George has been on the podium a bunch this season already. And no, Mercedes isn't a threat in the constructors, but George certainly could be in the drivers. So they might have to make a decision a lot sooner than, I mean, any decision is going to be sooner than they want to, but they're definitely going to have to make a decision pretty soon. I do agree with that. All right. Y'all want to go to Zoomy and Gloomy Boys, because there are a lot of drivers to talk about from both perspectives. So, Eboni, how about you give us your Zoomy and Gloomy Boy?
My Zoomy, of course, is Gasly. That was a great race from him, and I'm proud of the lad. My
Such a good lad. Do French people say lad? What do French people say?
I don't know. I should learn that. If he's gonna be I should be a better Frenchman. And my Gloomy is Max. I wish him several more Gloomy Boys in the near future.
Collect those Checo trophies.
Yes. Honestly, well, whatever. We don't have time to get into it. Deepti, your Zoomy and Gloomy Boy.
Zoomy, besides Oscar, of course, I'm actually gonna give it to George Russell, especially considering the stint that he put, like we talked about, on those soft tires right at the end. And Gloomy, I initially was going to say Kimi Antonelli, actually, because he was doing really well, qualified well, got messed up with like strategy and pit stop, so he finished outside of points. But I will give it to Carlos Sainz, because this was like the first weekend since the beginning, basically, when he was actually feeling good about the balance of his car. It looked like he was going to have a good race, possibly finish in points. And then that incident happened and he had to retire the car. So he just has 1 point. And it's still not the season that he was hoping for. And I'm sure he's like looking at his time back at Ferrari, and like a few months ago, I was in this fantastic red car. And like, honestly, it's not even still a bad car. It's just that he's not found the right balance for him. And I think he's probably also annoyed that Alex Albon is doing better than him, considering like we all think, and I think we can still say like Carlos is probably still a better driver than Alex. So the fact that Albon has like scored more points and has done well in qualifying and all probably is, I mean, it definitely is not helping. So yeah, gonna give Carlos that Zoomy Gloomy Boy.
Yeah, that is fair. Some of it's been his fault, some of it hasn't, but it doesn't matter whose fault it is. They're just having a lot of bad luck. And so it's been really unfortunate to kind of see what's going on there. Because like you said, he's having to see that Ferrari zoom by. And even if Ferrari's struggling, it ain't always where the Williams is. They're still better than that, even on a bad day. Donald, your Zoomy and Gloomy Boy.
So I was going back and forth between Ollie Behrman, who did great. Lewis was driver of the day. There's a lot of other drivers you probably could consider. I'm going to go with Deepti. I'm going to go with George Russell because in the preview, I said that George Russell was going to have a good day. So I will stand on business and say that man had a good day. Again, I think the soft tire strategy, or I'm sorry, not even the strategy, but the execution of it, right? Like being able to finish out when no one could get more than 12 laps out of those tires. That's a remarkable feat. So he has to be my Zoomy for that. My Gloomy Boy is the entirety of Aston Martin, because where were they all weekend? Down at the bottom all weekend. Alonso qualified 13th. He finished 15th. Stroll qualified 19th. He finished 17th, but that was thanks to Sainz retiring and Hülkenberg being disqualified. So they were non-factors for the entire weekend. As I mentioned on the preview, like this is not where Aston Martin needs to be. Aston Martin should not be, I mean, I was saying they were the Spurs of London, right? Of the big six clubs. And they're not even performing like that right now. They have to be getting points every week. They have to be contending for third, fourth place. And even really in their minds, they should be competing for constructors. But we know that's not going to happen with Stroll, but at least they can pretend. They're not even pretending anymore.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on Aston because I was like looking at and what Fernando finished 15th, Stroll finished 17th, and there were only 18 drivers that actually finished the race. Well, more than that, but Hulkenberg's DQ came after the race, so those two look like DNFs, but Sainz was an actual DNF. So yeah, not great. Remember when Lance Stroll
Alonso at least finished, which is for the first time this year.
There you go. I was going to say there is a silver
progress.
Progress, growth.
There you go. And then next, we'll see if he can get a little bit higher, maybe pick up a point or two. And Lance Stroll just looks like he's back to wanting to dance. So, that's what we talked about. We didn't think it would last. All right. I'm surprised that none of us, especially Deepti, gave our Zoomy Boy award to Oscar Piastri.
Well, I said besides Oscar.
But that's how it's going to stay. Okay, so he's like an addendum. You just threw him in there.
Yeah, like he was a given.
But I do think it has to stay because mine is Ollie Behrman. I mean, I think as Donald kind of laid out, like they did not have a good time in practice or qualifying. And you look at starting P20 all the way at the back of the grid. Obviously, the safety car helps a bit, but not like a ton. And he got up to 10th. He got points after the start. I think that's great to get that car. And he was one of those that switched to the hard tires as well. And so he was dealing with the tire that a lot of other people, including Max Verstappen, were struggling with. And he was able to make it work to get up there into points in a Haas. I thought it was a great drive. And I also loved the radio. They basically like everybody and his mama radioed him after the race. They were just like went through. It was like, oh, Ollie, it's your dad, it's your engineer, it's a mechanic. Like they let him talk to everybody after the race. And I don't even know who said it, but they were like, what do points mean? And he goes, points means prizes. And it sounded like he was 12 years old. It was amazing.
Hey, Ollie, you remember Judy and them from down the street, around the corner? Yeah, they're on the radio for you. Yeah.
You remember your babysitter back in the day? Remember when she looked after you? Yeah, Amber, come say hi to Ollie real quick on the radio. I'm like, can y'all just like text him or something?
Remember Mr. Smith from third grade science? He's on it.
It was amazing. And it was amazing, and it was also adorable because he was extremely happy, and he had a right to be.
The points mean prizes thing. What are they bribing him with? Like in his contract, it's just like it's not going to be bonus dollars. They've got to get some. They have something else for him.
That's like what I think the commentator tried to say. Like they have like a cash incentive, but like that wouldn't be framed as prizes. I'd just be like money, and he said prizes. So like, what are you giving that man? Do we even want to know? I'm not sure.
It's like a million tickets at Dave and Buster's. You get the little stuffed animal at the top, right? Not the one in the middle shelf, the top shelf.
He gets 50 free tickets to go to Dave and Buster's. That's what that was extremely hilarious. All right, my Gloomy Boy. It ain't even a person, or maybe it is a person. Whoever is in charge of this brand new timing tower they got on TV.
Oh my God.
you're trash. Like, fix it. It does not work. Even when it doesn't have like a catastrophic thing that relates to like one of the drivers. Like sometimes you'll see like two or three names will get like overlaid on top of one another, and it's just stuck as they try to move the drivers around on the board automatically, and then they got to take it off the screen. There's a time when it was just completely off the screen because it looked like George Russell dropped all the way from P2 to like P20 within like 3 seconds. And I was like, hold on a second. Like the thing is, it moves like with intervals. So like there's no way George could have dropped that quickly because you still have to wait. Like say a car that's 20 seconds behind him, you'll still have to wait those 20 seconds, even if he's on the side of the road not moving, for him to drop below that driver. But he like plummeted, and I was like, what was that? And the commentators weren't saying a word. They were just like, yep. And I was like, what is happening with George Russell's car? And then they just said a transponder, but didn't explain what that meant. And so we had to figure out that it was actually the timing tower. And then they just kept putting up the static image of what the running order was. So we didn't even have like intervals, couldn't tell who was in DRS range of anybody. Like, I like the way it looks, but if it's not functional, it's not used. Just go back to what worked last year. I mean, clearly this ain't ready. It's like, how many races are we in? 4? And every single race, it's had a major problem where it looks ridiculous. Even in practice sessions, it looks awful, and because it can't give you the information you're expecting to have. It's annoying. Either fix it or just go back to what it was last year.
They even had the parts where like it wasn't just like one driver, it was like a batch of drivers, right? They're like, Piastri's in 6th, and you're like, oh, Piastri must have pitted. And you're like, it didn't say that he pitted, but okay. Then all of a sudden it's like, nope, our bad. He's 1, George 2, this other dude's 4. And so all of a sudden you just see like a bunch of names just shift, and you're like, did they pit again? Like, you had to like be paying attention, and like you said, it wasn't catching the ears of the production truck so that the commentators could explain, you're not seeing things. It's just, this is messing up or malfunctioning. They just, for the George Russell thing, we're on the chat. We're just like, yo, George. What happened to George? He's in P20. And then all of a sudden, like, I think it was like a lap and a half later, like, oh, by the way, it was a transponder. He's actually 2nd. We're like, oh, okay. Wait, What does that mean? Like, why are we discussing George Russell, like, being in P20? But it needs to be updated again.
Yes.
I guess that the Friends meme. Oh, he's a transponder.
They need to do their Microsoft Windows updates at night. Actually, I'm sorry, they couldn't even do it at night because the race was at night. They need to do it when they go to sleep, so that way they wake up in the morning.
When
it's
the
there.
car
That's what happened.
Yes, in Park Fairmont, do those updates, not during the race. But can we real quick
now
run through all the mechanical issues that we saw during the race? We don't have to talk about all of them, but there were so many this like starting from free practice and qualifying, there was a lot. And so something was in the air or in the water at Bahrain, and it was just weird. But okay, Mercedes, I think Kimi had a power failure in FP1. Something was wrong with his like water pressure and engine, and that was overheating. So that was one start. George, we just talked about, there was so many failures, like the transponder, the like the dash went out. They said
the dashboard.
DRS, he was like, would stop working, which is why when he pressed the radio button, the DRS opened.
The radio button.
Like, I don't know how that happens when you're like mid-race, but sure.
That's like a 1997 Honda Accord or something. You try to roll down the window and the AC comes on, and you're like, oh man, I gotta get a new car.
Just the fact that that his engineer was like, hey, I have to manually tell you when to use DRS, and then I have to manually tell you which button to push because it's not the DRS button. And he pushes the radio. He's like, what? And then DRS opens.
Even I know you're probably getting to it, but Fernando Alonso's steering wheel just came off.
Yep. Alonso's steering wheel just came off. Was it Charles's
$1 billion
mirror
sport, y'all? $1 billion sport.
Charles' mirror flew off or something.
Yep.
Max literally said everything is overheating.
Everything's overheating. And then like in the pit stops, Red Bull's, the lights weren't working to tell the cars when to go, and that actually added like 2 to 3 seconds on each of their pit stops, because as soon as they're done, I guess it's a guy who controls the red light, green light, and unless it's green they can't go, but it never turned green, and so both of them left on a red light, and we're like, do we snitch? Is that a thing? Like, was this an unsafe exit? But no, it was just that their lights didn't work, and you can see the mechanic who was in charge of that just shaking his head or something. There was that. Liam Lawson had balance issues in his car. What else? There were Oscar's that radio call was
The
funny.
water?
But yeah, his engineer was like, "Oh, maybe you should take a drink," and he was like, "Well, I would if it worked." He's like, "I'm just joking." He's like, yeah, good idea, but I actually can't drink water right now because it's
And
not
then he was just
working."
like, well, there's 10 laps left. Like, all right, guess we'll get water
I
later.
can't get no water.
I also think in Lando's car wasn't a red light on, just red light, like a red light just popped on, and he was like, what's that? And they're like, we're checking,
We
and
don't
then
know.
it just went off. It's weird. It's almost like back if you've ever driven a car that like you really need to replace, the check engine light comes on, and you're like, oh damn, and then it goes off. You're like, oh hell yeah, like you
Yeah,
now I
you're
can
like,
just ignore
well-
this until it comes back.
It's just plausible deniability. You're like, they said the check engine light
Right.
comes on. You're supposed to check it out, right? Well, it went off,
Nah.
so that means the car is
Nah.
telling
Yeah.
me
It fixed
that
itself.
it's fine.
It's good. It's good.
It's like
good.
when you're you're sick. You're like, no, I can't go to school, but I can still play baseball.
But what
tonight.
y'all doing later?
good
Because I
for
might
that.
be able to go out. Right.
Yeah, I might be able to go out, but like I'm sick for school. I can't go.
And then apparently, I think George also at the end, he said something was wrong with his brakes, where if I understood correctly, I might be wrong about this, but he was like the brake pedal was like pushed too far in, and then it would be like popped out, and then it was just weird. Like he sometimes had to press a lot harder, sometimes didn't have to press too hard. There was a lot.
The Max said, I think it was during qualifying, or maybe it was the early part of the race. He's like, my brakes don't work. His engineer was just very calmly like, understood, noted. Okay, we're just gonna ride without brakes. Cool. Yeah. See how that works.
Thank you for running through all of those because I'm sure there were even a ton more. You just didn't hear all the radio messages. Do you have any more?
No, that's all I had. But I'm sure there were some other ones.
Oh my God. It was a hilarious race from that standpoint. And I was like, it's run at night. So I was like, is it the heat doing this or what? Because it was so weird that everybody had a not just like a specific problem, like a wide range of problems with their mechanical issues. It was strange. Okay. Coming up next, there is the third race of this triple header. It is in Jeddah, the Jeddah circuit, which is in Saudi Arabia. It is one of the scariest circuits to drive because it's just walls all over the place. It's really narrow and it's really fast. So we will definitely be here to talk about that and preview that race and, of course, review that race. But until then, for Deepti, Donald, and Ebony, I'm Andre. Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom.